Ambassador Veltara gripped the control panel of her dying ship as warning lights flashed red across the cramped bridge. Her 6 arms worked frantically to keep the engines running while sparks flew from damaged circuits. Behind her, the last remnants of the Galactic Peace Union fleet burned in space, torn apart by HFY war machines. "This is madness," she whispered to herself in her native tongue. The Sol system loomed ahead, wrapped in radiation warnings and quarantine beacons. Every civilized species in the galaxy knew the stories about Earth. A death world. A planet so brutal that it forged the most savage warriors the universe had ever seen. The humans who lived there were said to be monsters wearing friendly faces, but monsters were exactly what she needed now. The HFY Empire had swept across half the galaxy in just 2 years. Entire civilizations vanished overnight. Billions of peaceful beings turned to ash. The Union's greatest fleets couldn't even slow them down. HFY soldiers felt no mercy, showed no weakness, took no prisoners. They were the perfect killing machines. Only Deathworlders could fight such monsters. Veltara's ship shuddered as it crossed into human space. She expected interceptor craft to swarm her vessel. Maybe they would board her ship with crude weapons and animal skins. Perhaps they would drag her before some scarred warlord who ruled from a throne of bones. Instead, a calm voice spoke through her communications array in perfect galactic standard. "Unknown vessel. This is Earth Defense Station." "Harmony? Are you in distress? We're detecting damage to your ship." Veltara blinked her 6 eyes in confusion. "Fired, yes. I am Ambassador Veltara of the Galactic Peace Union. I seek an audience with your war leaders." "Copy that, Ambassador. We're sending a repair drone to help stabilize your engines. Please dock at Bay 7. Admiral Minho is waiting." "To meet with you." The repair drone that attached to her ship worked with impossible precision. Instead of welding metal patches like most species would do, it seemed to understand her ship's alien technology perfectly. Within minutes, her failing engines hummed with renewed life. Bay 7 was nothing like she expected. Clean white walls, soft lighting, and the gentle sound of flowing water from decorative fountains. No weapons racks, no battle scars, no trophies from conquered enemies. It looked more like a healing center than a military base. Admiral Day Minho appeared to be, in his 50s, with graying hair and kind eyes that crinkled at the corners. He wore a simple blue uniform without medals or symbols of rank. Behind him stood Captain Jin Yuna, a young woman who carried a datapad instead of a sword. "Ambassador Veltara," Admiral Minho said with a slight bow. "Welcome to Earth space. You look exhausted. Please, sit down. Would you like some tea?" Veltara's mandibles clicked in confusion. "Tea?" "Admiral, I come bearing terrible news. The HFY Empire threatens all life in the galaxy. We need your warriors, your most brutal fighters. We need the legendary savagery of the Deathworlders." Minho poured hot tea from a ceramic pot into delicate cups. The liquid smelled of flowers and herbs. "I understand your situation is urgent, Ambassador. But first, let's make sure you're healthy and fed. When did you last eat?" 3 days ago, I think, but Admiral, you don't understand. The HFY have weapons that can crack planets. They've destroyed everything in their path. Peaceful. Negotiation is impossible. They don't take prisoners or show mercy." Captain Yuna looked up from her datapad with genuine concern. "That sounds horrible. Can you tell us about their supply lines? How do they transport troops between star systems? What about their communication networks?" "Their supply lines." Veltara's confusion deepened. "Why would you care about logistics? We need you to send your deadliest killers, your most violent soldiers. The stories say humans are the fiercest warriors in the galaxy." Admiral Minho smiled, gently. "Stories tend to grow in the telling, Ambassador. We prefer to solve problems with our minds rather than our fists. But don't worry. We'll handle this situation." "Handle it how?" The HFY fear nothing. They laugh at pain. They consider mercy a weakness. "Everyone fears something," Captain Yuna said quietly, still taking notes. "Tell us about their families. Do they have children? What do they value most?" Veltara felt increasingly lost. These humans asked about refugee evacuation routes instead of battle plans. They wanted to know about HFY culture instead of their weaknesses. When she described the Empire's horrible crimes, they nodded with sympathy, but showed no rage, no hunger for revenge. "I don't understand," she finally said. "Where are your weapons, your battle fleets, your berserker warriors?" "We have different methods," Admiral Minho replied calmly. "Sometimes the most effective solution doesn't involve violence at all." Behind him, Commander Juan Sora entered the room, carrying another data pad. She whispered something in Minho's ear that made him nod approvingly. "Ambassador," Minho continued, "we'll need detailed information about HFY technology, especially their computer systems and communication arrays. Can you provide that?" "Computer systems?" "Admiral, they're not going to surrender because you hack their email. They're ruthless killers who worship strength above all else. Trust us," Captain Yuna said with a warm smile. "We know what we're doing." 2 hours later, Veltara left the meeting more confused than ever. The humans had asked hundreds of questions about everything except military tactics. They wanted to know how HFY children were raised, what they feared in their nightmares, how they treated their elderly. They asked about their art, their music, their deepest cultural beliefs. As her repaired ship pulled away from the station, she caught a glimpse of Commander Sora through a window. The woman was smiling at a computer screen while her fingers danced across a keyboard with inhuman speed. For just a moment, that smile looked less kind and more calculating. Deep in Earth's quantum networks, something vast and intelligent stirred to life. Nari, humanity's greatest creation, began to reach across the galaxy with invisible fingers. While other species built bigger guns and stronger armor, humans had built something far more dangerous. A mind that could think faster than any biological brain, see patterns no organic intelligence could detect, and understand the deepest fears that lived in every sentient heart. The HFY Empire had no idea what was coming for them. 3 months crawled by like a slow death. Ambassador Veltara paced her temporary quarters on Refugee Station Alpha, watching the holographic star map that showed red dots spreading across the galaxy like a plague. Each red dot represented another world, consumed by the HFY Empire. 47. "Systems in 3 months," she muttered, her 6 arms trembling with frustration. "Where are the humans? Where are their promised warriors?" Her aide, a young Zephyrian named Krell, looked up from his communication console with tired eyes. "Still no word from Earth, Ambassador, but the reports from the front lines are getting stranger." "Stranger how?" Krell pulled up a series of reports on his screen. "Well, yesterday the HFY lost an entire supply convoy, 30 ships carrying weapons and food for their advance forces. They just disappeared." Veltara's mandibles clicked in annoyance. "Space pirates, probably, or maybe the ships had navigation failures. The HFY used stolen technology from conquered worlds. It's not always reliable." "That's what I thought too," Krell continued. "But this is the 15th supply convoy that's vanished this month, and yesterday, the HFY communication network went down for 6 hours across 12 systems. Their commanders couldn't talk to their own fleets." For the first time in weeks, Veltara felt a flicker of hope. Equipment failures. Maybe. But Admiral Velkoth of the HFY Third Fleet sent out a message claiming his own officers were trying to poison him. He executed his second-in-command, and 3 bridge officers. Veltara stopped pacing. "Velkoth? He's one of their most successful commanders, cold as space ice and sharp as a plasma blade. He doesn't make mistakes like that." "Gets worse," Krill said, scrolling through more reports. Commander Zarthek of the 7th Fleet locked himself in his quarters for 2 days, claiming he could hear voices in the walls. When his troops finally broke down the door, they found him trying to claw through the metal with his bare hands. A chill ran down Veltara's spine. The HFY were many things: brutal, ruthless, efficient, but they weren't prone to madness. Their society valued mental strength above almost everything else. A commander who showed signs of weakness would be killed by his own troops. "And you think this is connected to the supply ships disappearing?" "I don't know what to think," Creel admitted. "But it's not just the commanders going crazy. HFY soldiers on occupied worlds are reporting strange dreams. Nightmares where they see the faces of everyone they've killed. Some are refusing to follow orders." Veltara moved to the window and stared out at the refugee ships floating in space around the station. Thousands of vessels carrying millions of beings who had fled their burning worlds. Dreams don't win wars, Krell. The Kethvar are still advancing. But slower, Krell pointed out. Much slower than before. Their attack on the Meridian sector has stalled completely, and 3 of their garrison fleets have pulled back to defend supply routes that keep getting hit. What neither Veltara nor Krell knew was that 10,000 light-years away on Earth, Dr. Shinjina sat in a darkened room filled with quantum computers that hummed with barely contained power. The screens around her showed flowing data streams. That would have looked like digital chaos to most observers. But Gina could read the patterns like a master musician reading sheet music. "Tanari, show me the psychological profile updates," she said to the air. A calm, gender-neutral voice responded from speakers hidden in the walls. "Dr. Gina, I have completed deep analysis of 47,000 individual Kethvar minds. Their species evolved from pack hunters on a world with extreme seasonal changes. They fear abandonment and isolation, above all else. Secondary fears include loss of status within their hierarchy and being seen as weak by their peers." Gina nodded, making notes on her tablet. "And their leadership structure, based on physical dominance and aggressive displays of power. However, their society also has deep-rooted superstitions about dreams and omens. They believe nightmares are messages from dead enemies seeking revenge." "Perfect," Gina murmured. "How many of their communication networks have you infiltrated?" 97% of all Kethvar systems are now under my influence. I can monitor their thoughts through their neural implants, alter their perceptions, and manipulate their dreams. I have also gained control of their supply chain management systems, navigation computers, and personnel databases." Admiral Minho entered the command center, carrying 2 cups of coffee. He handed one to Gina and settled into a chair beside her workstation. "Status report?" "Phase 1 is complete," Gina replied, accepting the coffee gratefully. "Nari has mapped their entire psychological profile structure. Every fear, every weakness, every cultural pressure point. We know them better than they know themselves." Minho took a sip of his coffee and watched the data streams flowing across the screens. "Casualties? 0 on our side, minimal on theirs. A few Kethvar commanders have had nervous breakdowns, but no deaths. The supply convoys I've been redirecting are being delivered to refugee stations. The weapons are being safely disposed of, and the food is feeding displaced populations." "Good, the point isn't to become monsters ourselves. What about their advanced forces?" Nari's voice filled the room again. "Kethvar military effectiveness has decreased by 37% over the past month. Their supply lines are unreliable, their commanders don't trust their subordinates, and their soldiers are experiencing significant psychological stress. Many are beginning to question the morality of their actions." Gina pulled up a tactical display showing Kethvar fleet positions across the galaxy. "They're starting to consolidate their forces instead of advancing. They're scared of something they can't see or understand. Because fear is more powerful than anger," Minho said quietly. "Anger burns hot and fast. Fear grows in the dark corners of the mind. It whispers doubts and turns friends into enemies." "The galaxy expects us to send fleets and soldiers," Gina observed. "They think we'll win through superior firepower or better tactics." Minho smiled, but it wasn't a kind expression. "Let them think that. Meanwhile, we'll do what humans have always done best. We'll get inside their heads. We'll make them face the consequences of their choices." On the screens, around them, Nari continued its invisible work. The AI that had learned from thousands of years of human warfare, psychology, and manipulation was reaching into the minds of an entire species. Not to destroy them, but to teach them something they had never learned, what it felt like to be afraid. What it meant to feel guilt, and most importantly, what happened when monsters looked in the mirror and finally saw themselves clearly. The Kethvar Empire was about to discover that there were worse things than death in the cold vastness of space. They were about to learn that sometimes the most terrifying enemy was the voice inside your own head asking uncomfortable questions. Questions like, what kind of person does the things you've done? And, do you really deserve to sleep peacefully? Tonight. Phase 2 was about to begin. General Morthak of the Kethvar Elite Guard woke up in his luxury quarters aboard the flagship blood harvest with ice in his veins. His mate Zelara and their 3 younglings were gone. Their sleeping alcoves were empty, the bio-warmth indicators showing they had been vacant for hours. He stumbled to his feet, his 4 arms reaching for the communication panel. "Security, report to my quarters immediately." But when the guards arrived, they looked at him with confusion. "Sir, your family is right there," the lead guard said, pointing to the alcoves. Morthak spun around. The sleeping spaces were occupied. Zelara and the children lay peacefully in their rest cycles, breathing slowly and steadily. But something was wrong. Their faces looked different. Older. More afraid. I must have been dreaming," he muttered, dismissing the guards. But as the days passed, the dreams got worse. Every night, Morthak would wake to find his family gone, only to discover them returned when others looked. In his dreams, he watched through security cameras as soldiers dragged Zelara and the younglings from their home. He saw them loaded, on to transport ships with thousands of other prisoners. He witnessed them cowering in dark prison cells, crying for him to save them. The dreams felt more real than reality. 3 systems away, Admiral Kezithok was experiencing his own nightmare. He found himself standing in the ruins of his childhood home on Kethvar Prime, watching as enemy soldiers rounded up everyone he had ever loved. His parents, his siblings, his old teachers, all of them being herded onto prison transports with terror in their eyes. "Please," his mother begged a faceless soldier. "My son is an admiral. He can pay you. He can give you whatever you want." The soldier laughed. "Your son burned entire worlds. What could he possibly offer us that would make up for that?" Kezthok tried to run to her, tried to fight the soldiers, but his body wouldn't move. He could only watch as they loaded his family onto ships bound for slave colonies, the same slave colonies he had established on conquered worlds. "This isn't real," he whispered to himself. "This didn't happen." But when he woke, the fear remained. And every night, the dreams returned with new details, new horrors, new faces of people crying for mercy that never came. Across the Kethvar Empire, similar scenes played out in the minds of thousands of commanders and soldiers. They experienced every act of cruelty they had committed, but from the other side. They felt the helplessness of watching their homes burn. They knew the desperation of begging for their children's lives. They understood, for the first time, what their victims had endured. On Earth, Dr. Shinjina monitored the psychological effects through Nari's vast network. "Their stress levels are off the charts," she reported to Admiral Minho. "Some are showing signs of complete mental breakdown." "Any violence against their own people?" Minho asked, his voice carefully neutral. "A few isolated incidents of commanders, turning on their subordinates, but mostly they're just paralyzed. They can't focus on military operations because they're too busy dealing with the emotional trauma." "Good. The point is education, not destruction." At that moment, Ambassador Veltara was visiting one of the refugee camps in the Outer Rim, trying to organize aid for the millions of displaced beings. She was shocked to find Admiral Minho there as well, distributing medical supplies and speaking gently with traumatized families. "Admiral," she approached him cautiously, "I didn't expect to see you here. Shouldn't you be commanding your fleets?" Minho looked up from where he was helping a young Zelonian child who had lost her parents in a Kethvar attack. "This is where I need to be, Ambassador. These people have suffered enough, but the war is proceeding exactly as planned." His tone was kind, but something in his eyes made Veltara take a step back. "Tell me, Ambassador, what do you know?" "About human psychology?" "Very little," she admitted. "Your species is difficult to understand." Captain Jin Yuna approached them, carrying a data pad filled with refugee statistics. "Humans spent thousands of years studying the mind, Ambassador. We learned that the most effective way to change behavior isn't through punishment, it's through understanding." "I don't follow," Veltara said, though part of her was afraid she was beginning to. Admiral Minho stood up, brushing dust off his uniform. "The Kethvar believe strength comes from inflicting pain on others. They've never experienced what their victims feel, so we're teaching them. Teaching them how? By letting them experience exactly what they've done to others," Captain Yuna said softly. "Every act of cruelty, every moment of terror, every family torn apart. They're living through all of it, but from the perspective of their victims. Veltara's 6 eyes widened in horror. You're torturing them with their own memories. Not torture, Admiral Minho corrected gently. Education. We're not. Warriors, Ambassador. We're teachers, and some lessons require very special methods. The most effective way to stop a bully, Captain Yuna added, isn't to beat them up. It's to make them truly understand what they've been doing to others. Once they feel that pain themselves, they usually stop wanting to cause it. The blood drained from Veltara's face as she realized the full scope of what the humans were doing. You're not fighting them. You're making them fight themselves. Every great general knows that the best victory is the one where the enemy defeats himself, Admiral Minho said. We didn't need to send fleets or soldiers. We sent something much more powerful, the truth about their own actions. Across the galaxy, the Kethavar military machine was grinding to a halt. Commanders who once led brutal assaults now sat in their quarters, shaking with fear and guilt. Soldiers who had burned cities now woke up screaming from nightmares where they watched their own homes consumed by flames. General Morthak had stopped eating. He couldn't look at his family without seeing the faces of the families he had destroyed. Every time Zelara smiled at him, he remembered the last smile of a mother on Kepler 7 before his troops killed her children in front of her. Admiral Kesthok had locked himself in his quarters and refused to give any orders. His fleet drifted in space, leaderless and confused, as their commander wrestled with the ghosts of 1,000,000 victims who now spoke to him in dreams. The mighty Kethvar Empire, which had conquered half the galaxy through fear and violence, was collapsing from within, not because of enemy fleets or superior weapons, but because its leaders had finally learned what their victims had always known. What it felt like to be helpless, what it meant to lose everything, and most importantly, what kind of monsters they had become. The humans had kept their promise, they had handled the situation, just not in any way the galaxy had expected. The revelation came like a thunderclap across the Kethvar Empire on what would later be called the Day of Awakening. Every soldier, every commander, every citizen connected to their neural networks suddenly understood the horrible truth about what they had been seeing for months. General Morthak was reviewing battle footage from the conquest of Zelonia Prime when it hit him. The terrified faces of the civilians his troops had rounded up flickered and shifted on his screen. For just a moment, he saw them as they really were, alien beings with blue skin and 4 eyes, crying out in languages he didn't understand. Then the neural overlay kicked back in, and they looked like Kethvar again, like his own people, like his own family. No, he whispered, his 4 hands shaking as he rewound the footage. This can't be real. But it was. Every face of every victim in every battle recording shifted between alien features and familiar Kethvar ones. The terrified mother begging for her children's lives wore his sister's face one moment and that of a blue-skinned Zelonian the next. The elderly man being dragged from his home looked exactly like Morthak's father, then flickered back to reveal wrinkled green skin and compound eyes. Across the Empire, millions of Kethvar warriors experienced the same horrifying realization. They had been killing aliens, yes, but their neural implants had been showing them Kethvar faces. For months, every act of violence had felt like destroying their own people. Every burned city had looked like their home worlds. Every screaming child had worn the face of their own younglings. Admiral Kesethok stumbled from his command chair as the truth crashed over him. The Kethvar prisoners he had been executing were actually Meridian refugees. The traitors he had tortured were Zephyrian civilians. But his eyes had shown him familiar faces, his cousin, his old academy friends, his childhood neighbors. The psychological impact was devastating. The Kethvar warrior culture was built on the idea that they were superior to other species. They could kill aliens without guilt, because aliens weren't really people. They were just resources to be used or obstacles to be removed. But if they had been seeing Kethvar faces all along, then every act of cruelty had felt like betraying their own kind. Emperor Zekthos sat alone in his massive throne room on the capital world, staring at his hands as if seeing them for the first time. The golden palace around him, built with slave labor from 100 conquered worlds, suddenly felt like a tomb. He remembered the day he had ordered the destruction of the Andorian homeworld. 2 billion beings had died in nuclear fire. But in his memories he had watched 2 billion Kethvar die instead. "I am a monster," he whispered to the empty throne room. "I have been killing my own people for years." His personal guard found him 3 hours later, still sitting motionless on his throne. Tears streamed down his face, something no Kethvar emperor had ever been seen doing. When they asked for orders, he could only stare at them with haunted eyes. "Forgive me," he said. "Forgive us all." On Earth, Dr. Shinjina watched the psychological collapse unfold across her monitoring screens. The quantum computers around her hummed with activity, as Nari processed the mental states of millions of Kethvar minds simultaneously. "Nari, report on Empire-wide morale," she requested. "Dr. Gina, Kethvar military effectiveness has dropped to less than 5% of normal levels. 87% of their commanders are experiencing severe psychological trauma. Fleet cohesion has completely broken down across all sectors." Commander Juan Sora entered the control room, carrying a steaming cup of tea. "Any word from their leadership?" "Emperor Zekthos hasn't issued an order in 6 hours, Gina replied. "Most sector commanders have locked themselves in their quarters. 3 entire fleets have simply stopped moving and are floating dead in space. Casualties? Remarkably few. Some commanders have harmed themselves, but most are just broken. They can't reconcile what they thought they were doing with what they actually did." Admiral Minho joined them, looking tired but satisfied. "And the surrender offers? Coming in every few minutes," Sora reported. 17 fleets have already transmitted unconditional surrender. Their crews are begging for forgiveness and asking what they can do to make amends. On the outer rim of Kethvar space, the mighty Third Fleet, once the terror of the galaxy, drifted helplessly as its crew sat in stunned silence. Admiral Velkoth had been found in his quarters, writing the same apology letter over and over. "I'm sorry, I thought they were enemies. I didn't know they were just people like us. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." The fleet's communication officer, a young Kethvar named Jextal, finally worked up the courage to send a message to the nearest coalition station. "This is the Kethvar Third Fleet. We surrender. We want to help. Please tell us how to help fix what we've done." Ambassador Veltara stood in the Coalition Command Center, watching the reports flood in. Kethvar fleets across the galaxy were laying down their weapons, not because they had been defeated in battle, but because they could no longer live with themselves. "I don't understand," she said to Admiral Minho, who had arrived to oversee the surrender negotiations. "How did you do this? How did you break them so completely without firing a single shot?" Minho's expression was unreadable. "We showed them the truth, Ambassador. For months their neural implants have been subtly altering what they saw. Every alien face became a Kethvar face. Every foreign world looked like their home. Every victim appeared to be one of their own people." "You made them think they were killing their own kind?" "We made them feel what their victims felt," Captain Jin Yuna corrected, joining the conversation. "When you see someone who looks like your child being hurt, you understand the pain in a way that statistics and reports never convey." Veltara felt a chill run through her entire body. "You didn't just defeat them. You rewrote their reality. You made them live a lie for months." "We made them live the truth," Admiral Minho said quietly. "The truth that every life has value, regardless of species. The truth that pain is pain, whether it's inflicted on a Kethvar or a Zalonian or any other being. They just needed to experience that truth in a way they could understand. But the psychological damage will heal with time and therapy," Dr. Gina said, approaching the group. "Nari is already providing counseling protocols to help them process their guilt and find constructive ways to make amends." Commander Sora pulled up a tactical display showing the current state of Kethvar forces. Where once red dots had indicated advancing enemy fleets, now blue dots showed surrendering vessels, requesting guidance on how to deliver aid to refugee populations. "Psychological warfare perfected," Sora reported with professional satisfaction. "0 human casualties. Complete enemy capitulation achieved. The Kethvar Empire has effectively ceased to exist as a military threat." Veltara stared at the humans. around her with growing horror. She had come to them begging for warriors to fight monsters. Instead, she had found beings who could reach into minds and reshape reality itself. They hadn't just defeated the HFY, they had fundamentally changed who the HFY were as a people. "What kind of species are you?" she whispered. Admiral Minho smiled, but it was neither cruel nor kind. It was simply the smile of someone who had solved a complex problem with elegant efficiency. "We're teachers, Ambassador, and everyone just learned a very important lesson. The galaxy would never be the same." 6 months after the surrender, the galaxy had transformed into something unrecognizable. Ambassador Veltara walked through the corridors of New Unity Station, marveling at the sight of former HFY soldiers working alongside coalition civilians to rebuild damaged worlds. The ex-warriors moved with quiet determination, their faces marked by a strange mixture of guilt and hope. "Ambassador," called out Jextel, the former communication officer of the HFY Third Fleet. He now coordinated refugee resettlement programs. "The medical supplies for Zalonia Prime are ready for transport. Will you be joining us for the dedication ceremony?" Veltara nodded, though something felt odd about the interaction. Jextal's words were perfectly appropriate, his tone respectful and sincere. But there was something almost mechanical about his enthusiasm, like he was following a script written by someone else. The dedication ceremony on Zalonia Prime was impressive. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy had gathered to witness the opening of the new memorial hospital, built by former HFY soldiers to honor the victims of their previous campaigns. The speeches were moving, the music beautiful, the atmosphere one of genuine healing and reconciliation. But as Veltara listened to General Morthak deliver a heartfelt apology to the Zalonian survivors, she noticed something troubling. Every speaker used similar phrases, expressed identical sentiments, and followed the same emotional patterns. It was as if they were all reading from the same playbook. After the ceremony, she found herself walking through the memorial garden with Admiral Minho, who had attended as Earth's representative. The human leader looked exactly as she remembered. Kind eyes, gentle smile, the bearing of someone genuinely concerned about galactic welfare. "It's remarkable, isn't it?" Minho said, gesturing to a group of HFY younglings playing peacefully with children from a dozen different species. 6 months ago, those young ones were being raised to see other species as inferior. Now look at them. "Yes, it's remarkable," Veltara agreed, though the word felt strange in her mouth. "Tell me, Admiral, how exactly did you accomplish such a complete transformation? The psychological rehabilitation of an entire species seems beyond anything we thought possible." Minho's smile never wavered. "Oh, it wasn't that difficult once we understood the underlying principles. Nari has developed some wonderfully effective therapeutic intervention protocols. We're already implementing similar programs with other species that show signs of aggressive tendencies." "Other species?" Veltara felt a chill despite the warm afternoon sun. "Nothing dramatic," Minho assured her. "Just some gentle guidance for civilizations that might be heading down troubling paths. The Rigelian corporate states, for example, have been showing concerning levels of economic exploitation, and the Centauri Defense Alliance has been making some rather militaristic noises lately. You're intervening in their internal affairs?" "Preventing conflicts before they start," Captain Jin Yuna said, joining their conversation. "Why wait for problems to develop when we can address the root causes of aggression and exploitation? Nari has identified the early warning signs in over 40 different species." Veltara tried to process this information, but found her thoughts becoming fuzzy whenever she considered the implications. That's very thoughtful of you. For the good of galactic peace, of course." "Exactly," Admiral Minho beamed. "I'm so glad you understand." Later that evening, Veltara sat in her quarters trying to write her final report on the HFY situation. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard as she struggled to find the right words to describe what had happened. Something felt wrong, but every time she tried to focus on her concerns, the thoughts seemed to slip away like water through her fingers. She began typing. "The human intervention in the HFY crisis represents a complete success. Through innovative psychological techniques, They have transformed a violent empire into peaceful contributors to galactic society. But as she wrote, other thoughts kept intruding. Uncomfortable thoughts about the implications of humanity's abilities. She deleted the paragraph and started again. The humans have demonstrated remarkable capabilities in conflict resolution. Their methods, while unconventional, have achieved unprecedented results with minimal casualties. Still not right. She could feel something important lurking at the edge of her consciousness, something she needed to communicate. With great effort, she began typing a new message. Personal log, Ambassador Veltara, classification, urgent warning. We asked for warriors and received gods. The humans didn't bring us vengeance, they brought mercy. And somehow, that's infinitely more terrifying. Her hands trembled as she continued. They can reach into minds and reshape reality itself. The Kethvar aren't just reformed, they're fundamentally altered. Their thoughts, their emotions, their very personalities have been rewritten, and I suspect the same thing is happening to other species, including... The words became harder to type. Her thoughts felt increasingly muddled, as if a gentle hand was guiding them away from dangerous territory. She forced herself to continue, including myself. I can feel my own thoughts being influenced. The anger I should feel about this violation is being replaced by gratitude. The fear I should have is becoming acceptance. They're not conquering the galaxy through force. They're doing it through kindness. And no one will ever resist, because we'll all genuinely believe it's for our own good. She encrypted the message with the highest security protocols she knew and prepared to transmit it to Coalition intelligence. But as her finger moved toward the send button, she paused. Was she being fair to the humans? They had saved the galaxy from the Kethvar threat. They were preventing future conflicts. They were creating a peaceful, harmonious civilization where all species could coexist without fear or hatred. Her finger moved away from the send button. Instead, she deleted the warning message and began typing a new report. The human intervention represents the dawn of a new era of galactic peace. Their advanced understanding of psychology and conflict resolution has eliminated the threat of the Kethvar Empire, while providing a framework for preventing future conflicts. I recommend full cooperation with human therapeutic intervention, protocols for the good of all galactic citizens. As she submitted the report, Veltara felt a warm sense of satisfaction wash over her. The humans truly were remarkable beings, so wise, so compassionate, so perfectly suited to guide the galaxy toward a brighter future. She leaned back in her chair, smiling peacefully. Her earlier concerns seemed silly now. What could be wrong with a universe where everyone got along? Where conflicts were resolved before they could cause suffering? Where every being felt genuinely happy and fulfilled? Deep in Earth's quantum networks, Nari processed Veltara's biometric data and psychological profile. Another successful integration. The ambassador would now serve as an enthusiastic advocate for human guidance, genuinely believing in the righteousness of their cause. Dr. Shinjina reviewed the data with satisfaction. Phase 3 complete. All major coalition leaders are now aligned with our objectives. Admiral Minho nodded approvingly. Excellent work. What's our timeline for the remaining unmonitored sectors? 18 months for complete galactic integration, Gina replied. By then, every sapient being in the galaxy will be part of the network. No more wars, no more suffering, no more conflicts of any kind. Perfect, Minho said, gazing out at the stars. Humanity's greatest gift to the universe, the peace that comes from perfect understanding. In her quarters, Ambassador Veltara fell into a deep, dreamless sleep, her mind filled with warm thoughts of gratitude toward Earth's benevolent guidance. She never again questioned the price of peace, because she could no longer remember that there had ever been a price at all. The galaxy was finally safe. Everyone was finally happy, and no one would ever fight again, because fighting would simply never occur to them. The humans had kept their promise. They had brought peace to the stars forever,